everybody, this is ServiceNow Expeditions. We guide you across the ServiceNow platform one waypoint at a time. Your guides Mike, Ula, and Ivan. We continue our travel to the ServiceNow data nebula. So guys, what are we going to discuss today?
Yeah, last time we talked about many-to-many tables. Now we want to extend this use case. I thought about what if we have an external service provider who's supporting our expeditions, for example, with nutrition packs of our crew members. So, and this service provider needs to know not only the names, but also some additional information like preferences regarding the nutrition and so on. We have our M2M table. We could dot walk to this table, but our service provider is not part of our platform. He is only consuming the data via an API endpoint. So the question is whether this API endpoint to an M2M table is really a good solution. Basically not. We will have a look on this on the reason. But let's start first with our diagram we had finished the last time here exactly.
Yeah.
And we see here that our expedition crew member table in the middle, our M2M table, is now connecting the expedition and the user. And maybe just for better understanding, we should open again an expedition record and have a look on this M2M table.
All right, here we have the record for our new expedition, and here is our table.
Yeah, we should add some crew members here.
And Abraham Lincoln, our long-term crew members.
The table here is appearing as a related list at the bottom of the form, but basically this table also exists as a real table. Maybe we open this in a new window. Yes. Here we have a filter on our current expedition. So now let's assume our service provider wants to consume these data. No? We have the expedition, we have the user, but we only have the name, the display name of the user, and nothing more. We could add some columns here and do some dot walking to add any fields like an email address or this mentioned field. We don't have at the moment any kind of nutrition preferences. So to check what's happening under the hood, if we add more columns here to see more information, we should enable the SQL debugger. I don't know whether we have done this before, but today it's a good time to showcase this here. So
I have already opened it somewhere here, and in the settings, I will activate the basic SQL and press enable. For those who want to activate it themselves, you can find it in the application navigator when you, let's say, search for debug SQL. All right, now let me enable it. And we are now supposed to track everything what is happening behind the scene between ServiceNow and the database.
Okay, then let's start with reloading the list view. There's a lot of information. So the problem here with the list view is that a lot of additional requests are fired behind the scenes. So for reducing the requests to the database, there is a better option instead of the list view. I prefer going to the REST API Explorer. So to consume the same data, not in the list view, but in the REST API Explorer. So maybe we should try this.
Okay, let's do this. And let me select our M2M table.
Yeah.
And let me send the request. But before, I will clear the log.
Yeah, this is always a good idea.
And then let's send it.
Yep.
Now.
Okay. Now we see
looks better.
Less information. That's way better. Yes. How many records did we? We only entered one record, right? The problem with the REST API Explorer is that in the standard configuration, it only returns one record.
Yeah.
So maybe we should.
Let's increase it to 10.
Yes, exactly. Because I want to
again.
point to something.
Okay. Let's increase it. Yeah. Let's increase it to 10. And let's send it again. And switch to REST API. All right, here we are.
Yes, this is the expected result.
Okay.
We only requested data from the M2M table. So now let's expand the data to more information, because I said the external service provider needs more information. For example, the email address. So you know from the last session, we can add additional columns here, and these columns
With the help of ServiceNow utils and personalized list columns option, we can double click and then walk to the sysuser and email field. So
Yep.
enter, and now we should be able to see it after the user. Here we are.
Yeah.
So let
Exactly.
us clear the log and try to
reload
also
this.
add it in the csparm fields, right?
Yes, you're right. Yes, we also have to enter it here.
Yeah, to make it work, this particular use case in the REST API Explorer.
Yep.
So now let's send.
Mhm.
And oh, now we have
Yes,
something else.
and you see in the last line, there is a request to the sysuser table to fetch the additional data we need, the email address, for example. So now imagine you have more users in this table, more information you want to collect. And for each of these .walk fields, ServiceNow would fire additional database requests. This is a performance issue at the end. If we are talking about many records in a table, millions, for example.
So does this mean it's going to fetch the entire user record, even though you only wanted the email address?
No, let's check what the statement looks like. The last line, if you hover over the last line and the 3 dots after select.
Yeah, there is a lot of different fields popping up, actually the whole record.
To restrict the data to really what we want to see, we need a better approach. Therefore, we have in ServiceNow database views. Database views allows us to join different tables and to create a new view which is specialized on a certain use case. I know many are scared of database views, but at the end, there is no problem to build them if we have this kind of diagram in front of us. So we already have this many-to-many table, and we use the same to build a database view. You see in this new view blue labels, and these labels apply to the database view configuration. So the first thing what you need to think about is a new name for your table you want to join, because you need so-called prefixes. We will see later what these prefixes mean in ServiceNow. Many users labeling these tables with abbreviations, but to my mind, this is not a good idea. So I always use meaningful names like the expedition, the 𝐓𝐀 member, and the crew member.
Yeah, I think this all comes from the documentation of ServiceNow, which is available, and the examples that they have there normally concentrated over incident, request, and with the well-known abbreviations like 𝐸𝐁, correct, etc., etc. Yeah.
So you might wonder why I haven't chosen underscores to separate the different words like 𝐓𝐻 member, but there's a restriction. You cannot use underscores in these variable prefixes. So therefore, it doesn't look well, but at the end you can read this 𝐻𝐻 member. And with the help of this diagram, you now can configure the view tables one after another, not from left to the right. I think we could just go to the database view configuration screen. It's already prepared.
Here we are.
Yes. You need to provide a name for the database view. It's a technical name. And on the right side, you can also provide a label and a plural form of a label.
Similarly to the tables, right? Always singular, and then you'll get a plural automatically.
And in the list view, you specify or select the tables you want to join. It's the best you start from the left and go over to the right. So that means you start with the expedition table, and then with the M2M table in the middle you want to join, and then on the right we have the sysuser table.
Yeah, basically, so the main table and the one which you want to enrich with the data, right? With the tables that you are taking the data from afterwards.
At the moment, the M2M table is in the focus, because this is what we want to provide to the external service provider. That meaning the expedition and its crew members. That's the reason why I focused also in the diagram on the M2M table in the middle. And on the left and on the right, we have the additional tables which are providing additional data.
Okay.
From the expedition table, we just get the expedition number at the moment, but we need more information from the user table.
That's good.
Yeah, it could be from both tables. It could be additional details from the expedition record, like the expedition length. So
Exactly.
they dimension correctly how many nutrition packs you need.
So on the last piece here in this picture is how to connect these tables in a database view. And going back to our diagram, we just followed the arrows we have. Now remember, we connected these M2M table with arrows to indicate how these tables are connected to each other. And we use these arrows to build a connection also in the database view. We start at the top with the has crew member. This is the M2M table in the middle, and the field, which is connecting the expedition table on the left. The field name is just the field name from the M2M table we already had. And then equals, on the right, we then connect it to the expedition record, expedition underscore sysid. Because in the M2M table, you know, the references are just references to sysids, to the right and to the left.
Yeah.
This is the nature of an M2M table. It's just a connector between two main tables, and it basically only contains references to the tables it's connecting to. There's a special hint. You see a kind of weird notation, expedition underscore sysid. The problem here, or not the problem, the issue is that in a database view configuration, you cannot use dots anymore. Basically, you would say expedition.sysid. This is what we are used to when we talk about dog walking. But in a database view, we are not allowed to use dots. Therefore, we have to replace them with underscores. This is the only thing you need to know if you are configuring database views. So if you are going back to the database view configuration, yes, the where clause, this is the connecting part. Yes, maybe you can open one of these records so we get it larger here. Yes, perfect. So the where clause in the middle, this is the connecting part. So as I mentioned, has crew member is the prefix of the M2M table. This is a new name we gave to this configuration item. Then underscore is the connector between the table name in this database view configuration and this field. And then equals to the right side, to the left side, to the expedition table. Expedition, this is the prefix of the expedition table, and then underscore sysid. This is just the property of the expedition table we want to connect. So basically, we are just repeating an M2M configuration in a database view. That's everything what we are doing here. The reason why we are doing this extra efforts can be seen later when we come to the field configuration.
Let me ask you a question. In the diagram, you have the M2M table as a centerpiece, but in the database view, then you have the M2M table as the middle piece. What's the thought process behind this?
Basically, I repeated the diagram from left to the right. So I started with the order 100 with the expedition tables, followed by the M2M table, and finished by the sysuser table. So it's exactly the order what we could see in the diagram before. If your question is about what if we would rearrange the order here, I think this should be possible and we should end in the same result. So let's try this out. We have this related list action. Try it.
Let us try it and see the results.
Yeah. So we get some results, but we are not sure whether they are really the right results. So therefore, we should validate them. In the baseline configuration, ServiceNow is not caring about which columns are meaningful to us. So it's just picking a random number of columns and presenting it here in the database view. So if we want to see the right data, we have to reconfigure the table layout here. So we can pick better columns. For example, maybe we want to include the expedition number. Yes, that was already there, the expedition.
Number,
Here you have it.
then the short description, right?
Yeah.
But is this correct? If the main table is crew member, then probably the main field should be the name, right?
So it might be a bit confusing because we see on the left side a lot of columns here. So let's have a look on the technical names. Maybe with the double click on the canvas, yes. So now we get a better understanding why
It's much better.
why I tended for this meaningful prefix names. Because you see now crew member underscore, and you know that this column is coming from the crew member
Yeah.
table.
Very good.
That's actually makes much more sense to me now. All right, so we can add the name of the crew member, avatar. I don't know, we can skip for now. Building, this is all we don't need.
Exactly.
So we can remove, and basically we'll have the name of the crew member, expedition number, and the expedition description. Probably should be fine. Let's see what happens. Okay, yeah, here we are.
I think this should be correct, right? We had
Yeah,
two expeditions and we added some crew members to
Yeah.
2 expeditions. Yes, right.
That's correct.
So now let's check what the REST API Explorer will provide to our external service provider. So we need to select another table here. At that time, the name of our database view.
Here we are. I will remove this one. And
Yeah.
let's say also clean the log and debugger. Now we are ready to test. Send. Here we are.
Let's first have a look on the result on the payload we are receiving from the REST API endpoint.
Ah, here we go.
Lots of
And
data.
also here you can see all these column names prefixed with the table prefix we have configured in our database view configuration. And basically this is too much.
Yeah,
So
that's
we
no
don't want
go.
to expose these data to the external service provider. So
Yeah.
therefore we need to reduce the table, the database view to the columns we want to expose. And this has to be done in a different way. At the bottom, we see the view tables. And if you click on one of these tables, for example, on the second one, on the expedition.
Yeah.
Open this, please. And then, is it open? Yeah. Here we have the view fields. And this is the way to restrict our columns which are selectable in a database view and also which are returned by the REST API Explorer. So it was already configured with short description and number. So the expectation is that back in the data in the REST API Explorer, we should only receive these two fields for the expedition prefix. So maybe
Let
we
us
can
check. Okay, so crew member, a lot of data has crew member, a lot of
and
data.
here I see expedition short
Yeah.
description.
And here we come expedition and the expedition number. And the first result does not have anything else related to expedition, so it seems that it works.
Yeah. So if we want to restrict further the available fields in our API endpoint, we have to continue in the configuration and select only the fields we want to expose to the external service provider.
Yeah.
For example, the username, the user email address, or the meal preferences later.
Makes sense.
So if you have no view fields, then all fields are returned.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Let me quickly jump there and modify it so that we have a very good example on how the payload can be reduced. So first one will be the name. Then we need email and something like, I don't know, let's put a company to identify. All right. Now if I switch back here and do the send, we should see a very reduced list of crew member fields. And that's exactly what happened. We have crew member itself. We have company, SID, email, and some service fields like class name, etc.
Yeah, I'm wondering about these additional fields. It seems so we
Because
cannot prevent this.
that's because I think exactly what I was talking about. Because of this, this is the main table which you define and then you connect it. That's why it's It's showing for expedition just 2 because we are starting basically here. There are nowhere close.
Okay. Yeah.
But it doesn't matter at
Yeah.
this point.
Okay, let's check what happens behind the scenes regarding the optimization or the performance of SQL statements. So here we have the M2M table, and we are dot walking to the sysuser email field. And after requesting this from the REST API Explorer, you see here additional SQL statements to
This user table.
Two requests to the sysuser table, because in the result of our M2M table, we saw 2 different crew members, Beth and another one, Lincoln. And that means dot walking always creates additional requests in the background, unless you are joining the tables. You can do this in the scripting, in the code, you can not join tables, but for the standard list view and also for standard REST API requests, ServiceNow would create additional requests to the sysuser table or to any other table which is not part of the main table you are requesting. So therefore, if you want to combine more data from more tables, you need a better way, a more performant way. And here, the database view wins the challenge, because if we now select the database view, this has to be removed exactly.
Now let us send it again. And here we are.
Here you don't see anymore the extra requests to the sysuser table. What you can see here is only one select or database select, and everything is contained in the result of this select, because here you can see the inner join between the 3 tables. We have 2 inner joins, because 3 tables, we need 2 joins, and all the data we need is now returned in one database request. This is more performant.
It's basically delivered to you by the database, right? And not resolved and combined by ServiceNow.
Yes, exactly. So let's continue, or let's finish this configuration with the last aspect we haven't talked about so far. This is the left join column on the right. It's already enabled. And in the baseline configuration, this column is not visible. So that means you have explicitly to configure it if you want to see it here. And
through a list layout.
Yeah, via list layout. So on here, we need to talk about join. What is a join, and how many types of joins do we have in a database world? And to explain this better, I was searching for a better picture for an illustration, and this is the one here. Exactly. Here you can see the different join types we have which are possible in a database. If we don't talk about ServiceNow, just about, for example, Oracle. And do you know what we have if we don't select any kind of join? What is ServiceNow returning in a database view?
Left join is default, right?
No, by default, we have inner join.
Is it? Oh,
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, you even can see this inner join in the SQL debugger. If you go back, maybe it's still open. And
but as we are using left, right, now I need to disable it as it was pre-configured. I will now change it back to the default settings. I'll clear the log and then I send again. Let's see what we'll get. Here we are.
Inner join, yes.
Great.
In ServiceNow, the only option to expand this to another type of join is to get a left join. In the lower left corner, we see the left join and what we would get here. The other types of joins are not available in ServiceNow. We cannot change this. For our use case, I think we don't need to expand this. We are good with the inner join scenario.
But what does it all mean in the simple words, right? So the inner join will join 3 tables.
Yeah.
According to our configuration that we did here, right? Using the fields on one table and the sysid on the other table, and it will return only the records which have a match in both, right? So that's the inner join. That's why it's colored in the middle.
You can imagine yellow field in the middle is representing our M2M table records. So we get what we get from an M2M table. If we would expand the view to the left join, we would also get, for example, depending on the order of our tables, all expedition records, even if they don't have any crew members. This is not what we want to receive here. The external service provider only wants to see records where an expedition has a crew member.
Yeah,
exactly.
So what else can we do with database views? What about reporting? Because reporting on the M2M table is also not always the best idea. So therefore, reporting on database views is more convenient.
It's actually one of the main use cases for them, as far as I know, right?
Yes, it's one of the main use cases. There are more special use cases we can talk about later. For the moment, let's go to the new place we have in ServiceNow regarding reporting.
To showcase the usage in the reporting, we need to go to Platform Analytics. As you know, the legacy reporting engine is not available anymore. And here we need to create a dashboard. We have already done this and also added a new element, which is a data visualization with a simple list. Here in the data sources, as you can see, we have selected crew members, and this is exactly our database view, right? If we check, we'll see it.
Yes. And also here, you have to configure the columns you want to present in a report or in a list view here in that case.
Exactly. So if I click on it, I can then modify the required columns. But I thought it should display exactly what we have here.
I think these two views are not related to each other.
No.
They're independent.
Yeah, we can add them manually here, all the columns that we need. For the demo purposes, let me just add one more, which is email. And the problem is why I hate it, right? As soon as you add one field, it will delete the default view and will require you to add all the fields. Normally, it takes exactly the default view.
What do you think regarding access rights, so ACLs and so on? We are joining two tables with each other.
It's a great question, always, right? Security first. So, Ola, what do you think?
Well, you could easily be mistaken and think, okay, this is a new table. I need to set up separate access rights, but it's actually inherited from the two tables that are joined. So you need to think about your security beforehand.
Yes, that's right. For the work and the UI here, basically you wouldn't think about this aspect. But for your external service provider, you have to think about which type of ACL configuration you want to configure here so that the external service provider has also access to this table.
Yeah.
Or to this database view, let's say.
So in this particular case, the external provider shouldn't have access to the sysuser data, but only to specific fields from the sysuser, right?
Yes, depending on our use case, we have really to think about what kind of ACLs we want to configure so that these data are visible to the external service provider. If I'm not wrong, sysuser data are available to everyone in the platform.
Might be so.
But here we had to dig deeper and to test this with an extra user account, which is reflecting the external service provider. There's a special use case. It's called single table database view. So what do you think? Why should we configure a database view with only one single table?
Really nice question.
To reduce the number of columns viewable?
This is one aspect. The other aspect is, and we haven't talked about so far, what is really a database view? There is this word view. So do you think, can you edit a record in a database view?
No, I don't think so.
Exactly. It's only a view on the data. And a single table database view means you get only the view on one table. This is a kind of workaround to provide data to users without providing any writing access. It's just let's say hack or a workaround. Basically in a real customer project, you wouldn't do this. Just keep it in mind, it's possible. I tried this before, so you can create single table database views. It's possible. And yes, as you mentioned, you can here change the labels of the columns. This could also be useful in some use cases. If you cannot change the labels if they have been set in, for example, incident table, but in a database view, you're allowed to relabel the columns.
Do I need to first select them as a view fields?
Yes.
And then here we have an option to rename it.
No, there is a translation table in ServiceNow which is dealing only with the labels of database views or other tables. I cannot remember anymore. I have done this before. I know that's possible. There are 5 tables in ServiceNow which are dealing with translations. And one of these, I think it was sys documentation, but I'm not sure at the moment. You had to add additional record, and then you would be able to relabel an existing column in the database view.
Wow, but it's not very obvious.
I also thought that there was some out-of-the-box feature that you could use to rename it.
Yeah, because I would have never.
That's gonna be really hard.
I would have never found it that way. Well, our dear ServiceNow explorers, that was it for the very complex but very useful subject that we have covered in this session. And to wrap it up, we like to highlight the most important points and use cases where you might need these database views. So Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, we need database views whenever we want to join different tables in one view. That means we want to see the data, for example, in one list view, or we want to provide these data in a single REST API endpoint to external users, because dot working always creates additional database requests, thus creating more performance issues. And if you want to process further on this data, for example, for reporting, the only chance you have in ServiceNow is to create a database view. Here we can restrict the fields to whatever we want to see. We saw this before. We could restrict the fields from each and every table to single fields. And also we can restrict the access to this table, to this individual table. We don't need to expose the whole table API. We can restrict the access only to this database view. This is another advantage. So, Ola, do you want to add something?
Yeah, this is a much easier way to set it up compared to setting up a scripted REST API or something else that involves heavy coding.
Yes, I agree.
And just to explicitly highlight, database views are very useful if you want to build a complex and meanwhile a performant report. So make sure to investigate them. And with all that being said, we will be glad to see you in our next expeditions. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.